So 16 months later, Favret-Saada returns to see the Babans. At this time, she had already been enunciated, she'd already been bewitched, and she'd worked with Madame Flora. Madame Flora had unwitched her. It took her 4 months, she said. Madame Flora even supports her writing, Favret-Saada writing this book that she's writing. And she makes some joke that it'll be like, well, if she puts out there what all the other people are saying about witchcraft, they'll see how silly they are and I'll look awesome. It's an intriguing kind of argument. All right, so what happens is she goes to the Baban's house, and eventually she approaches Jean Baban to have him unwitched by Madame Flora, but he refuses. His wife, in fact, states that he does not believe much in spells, but she does. So she wants this to continue. She wants the unwitching to be done upon Jean Baban through her. Jean Baban's in a sticky situation. He's met so many unwitchers that have done so much stuff, but he's never been fully unwitched. They got the Chicots who were doing all sorts of stuff, ruining their milk and causing all sorts of tragedies and whatnot. They got that all resolved, but the impotence never goes away. So Favret-Saada talks to Josephine, Jean Baban's wife, telling her about meeting people who can lift spells. And she actually describes herself becoming bewitched, which we'll read about later, resulting in a number of illnesses and car accidents. Over the period of 4 months, she works with Madame Flora and is unwitched. Now, the Babans are still impotent. And in fact, they've been enraged by a doctor who wouldn't listen to them about their spells. The doctor even accused Josephine for her husband's own impotence, saying she didn't know how to love on him. Favret-Saada says that is clearly not the case because of X and Y, which we don't need to get into. Now comes the interesting part. Josephine actually reveals to Favret-Saada that some other people in the areas had gotten in trouble, had become bewitched. And who did they accuse of being their witch? They accused Jean Baban. J'accuse. I accuse you. So Jean Baban has been accused of being a witch. We've seen him being bewitched. Well, that's intriguing. In fact, Favret-Saada notes an odd little system that's going on within the system. People who are bewitched often accept that they are bewitched only after they are accused of being a witch. It's like they are accused of being a witch, which they're like, hey, I'm not a witch. I didn't do any of this stuff. But then as a result of thinking about that, they recognize that they are themselves bewitched. Now, Jean Baban does not want to go to see Madame Flora. He, in fact, tries to see if she can do the unwitching just using a picture so she doesn't have to go, or so he doesn't have to go and see her. Anyway, what we can see is that he has this sort of classic psychological resistance. He's resisting looking at the problems. He's resisting treatment. Josephine, in fact, begins sort of, Josephine tells stories about how she had been bewitched, and it was the Chicot witches. And we'll see that the Chicot witches were some people that were thought to be bewitching Jean Baban. There's supposed to be two groups, the Ribaus and the Chicots. All right. The thing is, once the Chicots sort of witchery is resolved, the sex problem remains. And Ribaud is still operating. So throughout an earlier process, they got rid of one set of witches. But Ribaud, the most powerful one, the neighbor man who's at the depths of his bewitching, Jean Baban's bewitching, he's still operating. So Josephine does not talk to Madame Flora about Jean Baban's accusation. She's supposed to be telling her unwitcher everything, but she never mentions that Jean Baban was at one point accused of being a witch himself. Now, right after he was accused, his alcohol abuse accelerated, and he just started acting more and more bewitched. So what was going on? Well, in fact, we had a family, the Nuets, and they were consulting an unwitcher. And the unwitcher said, the first person who comes and asks you for help will be your witch. In fact, Jean Baban's scooter breaks down by their house, by this family's house, and he goes up to the house asking for a tool. From there, they make the accusation, and of course, he's like, witchcraft can't be real. How could it be real? I'm not a witch. That's ridiculous. So he knows that he's innocent. But however, he knows that they're working with an unwitcher. And if they're working with an unwitcher, that unwitcher is going to be, whether he's innocent or not, stealing his vital force. And this way, the unwitcher is similar to a witch. So he's caught in this system. He suffers from all sorts of misfunctions and misfortunes. And this is common right after someone is accused of being a witch. But the system will not allow for him to talk to a bewitcher about the accusation. It just won't. That's just unheard of for various reasons. So if someone is accused of being a bewitched or being a witch, they have three options. They know that it's untrue, so they can just be like, well, that's untrue. But they also know that an unwitcher is going to start doing bad stuff to him. They could also respond with jokes and sarcasm. Or, as Jeanne does, they say they don't believe. However, she notes that the more people say they don't believe, the more they kind of act like they are bewitched. All right, one more break time.